Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair agale, ni hao, chunushumme, washmale. Ohaya Gonzaimas, Guten Morgen, Hola, Boyo, Privyet, Kaifahal, Hale Shumachatore, Ahlan Wasal Marhaba, Buna, Mucho Gracias, Swabi, Abballi Kare, Hosh Gal, Denanayo, Sayo, Huya Mora, Chivato, Chihajut, Kalimera, and a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Haja, how are you feeling today?
Assalamu alaikum, Jazakallah khair for introducing me. Certainly we are living in Islamabad and mercury is soaring, I think above the 40 degree or something like that, and it's extremely getting hotter. And there's also a cyclone coming on. Obviously we're going to talk about it in the detail in the news, but Shahzad, since it's summer times and since it's summer vacations generally in Pakistan and around the world too, and we really we are so thirsty because of the sweating that we want to get some very cold beverages, and we do have seasonal fruits and their juices coming out, but I think one beverage that stands out in my mind and that can really beat that heat is lassi. So I love lassi so much, and there's so many types of lassi. So there's meathi lassi, and then there's namkeen lassi, and
there's laban.
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, there's laban. It's like a more liquid form of yogurt which you drink.
Okay.
And it kind of gives you that feeling of, you know,
I don't know if you had
feeling cold inside.
Opportunity of drinking Turkish iron, because the way you were describing it, the Turkish iron stands in my mind because it is a diluted form of the yogurt, but it's very cold, and it really soothes you inside.
And it's exactly like that, and not just that. Then there's fruit yogurt as well. You know, there's blueberry flavor and mango flavor and whatnot. But you know, while you've actually spoken of lassi, you know, I have a very interesting incident to share, and that is that, you know, so ever since we were growing up, so I was growing up in a very Punjabi family, you know, so it's paranthe or pronte, and then, you know, there's lassi and there's dahi and there's desi ghee and whatnot.
Makai ki roti and
so, you know, every time, you know, before we used to go to school, you know, so my mother always made sure that all of us siblings are going to have a paratha and lassi and whatnot. But lassi, I don't know whether, you know, for all of those people who are regular drinkers of lassi, they might know that you actually feel sleepy and dizzy after drinking lassi. So that's exactly what used to happen with me, that in the school, you know, whenever I used to be in the class, you know, I would sleep, or probably, you know, my eyes would close just because of the fact that I was feeling sleepy. And then one day, you know, my teacher asked, Shahzad, you know, what is your problem? Why are you always sleepy in the class? And I was like, Madam, you know, I drink lassi in breakfast, which is why it makes me a little sleepy. And from there onwards, all of my friends, you know, who went with me to Beria College called me Lassi Man. and that was the name I was.
That's a nice
title. Not really bullied, but I didn't care. But, you know, Lassi, ladies and gentlemen. Then I had to stop with Lassi so that I can concentrate in my class. And certainly my teachers were very happy.
And there's another beverage that also stands in my mind. I don't know what is the English counterpart of that, but I think that's a very desi term. It's also called sattu. So my fathers drink that a lot because he says that is the real solution to beat this extremely excruciating heat out there. But Shahzad, so since you were growing up in a Punjabi household, and especially if you have enjoyed the village culture of experience of living in the village culture, so you would see that the lassi at that time, it was made in I don't know what you call madani in English. Yes, and the taste that you would get from that madani wali lassi, it was such a good taste that you can't get it from nowadays in I think blender made lassi or whatnot, right?
And whenever we used to go to, you know, any village, you know, so unfortunately I was never able to go to my own village, you know, visit there, because, you know, we had some I think issues over property and whatnot and life threats. So ladies and gentlemen, couldn't really go there. So I've enjoyed my friends' villages.
You
know, so
whenever and which wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was Mandi Bahawaldeen, which I've been going to very regularly, and over there. So one other way of beating heat was Peter, you know, so that tube well they have, you know, which serves the purpose of watering the fields and whatnot, you know, out there, the agriculture land, that you would take bath in it and you would just stay in it all day long and whatnot. So ladies and gentlemen, these are all the ways of beating the heat. And recently, you know, the one way of beating the heat is having a UPS at your place, because certainly generators are very expensive. And just last night, I couldn't sleep, I'm very sorry. But I was so dedicated to be over here today that I was like, no matter if I sleep or not, because imagine that there was no light all through the
Oh my
night.
God.
And,
Oh
and,
my
and,
God.
and, you know, it rhymes as well. There was no light all through the night. So, ladies and gentlemen, if
I
God forbid
think-
you've
I
had
think-
such a night, please make sure
I
that
think
you
you
please
should
go to
refrain
work.
from having such sort of rhyming words. So it might be possible that you have to face it again and again. God forbid, right?
Yeah,
Because
God
it's
forbid.
very scorching heat outside, and we all need ACs to
Yeah.
make sure that we are living to our optimum level.
So imagine what I did. So what I did
Okay.
was that, you know, okay, after that point where I was like, okay, you know, I cannot bear the heat anymore, and you know, the UPS switched off. So I went downstairs because only mom and dad's room fan was on. So I was like, okay, the UPS might be working downstairs. So I just went downstairs,
Okay.
and then I felt a little selfish about myself because none of my kids were actually up. So I was like, whether I should take them downstairs or not. Then I went outside their room and I was like, okay, everybody's sleeping. I think I should go down.
Okay.
I just went down, turned on the fan, and it was
Yes.
a great night.
Yes, yes, and I think we will extol the virtues of village life and especially the haunted ghost stories, but in the coming program too, because we want to maintain the excellence in that program. So now moving on to our top
And how
stories.
everybody used to sleep in veranda as well.
Yes, and there was this particular sort of a tube well or well, and there was lot of stories and myths around that you know, and they used to ward off that evil spirits and ghosts. They used to have that diya. So we will talk about it in the detail in the coming program.
Probably, I think we should do a dedicated show tomorrow,
Yes,
and that
yes.
to talk about village life.
Yes, extolling
do
the
it.
virtues of village life,
Yes.
because I think we certainly miss that because urban life is very
And
fast.
I'll wear a dhoti tomorrow.
Okay, wonderful. So Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has directed the authorities concerned to utilize all the resources for the protection of the people from cyclone Biparjoy. Chairing a high-level meeting in Islamabad, Prime Minister set up a committee to deal with the emergency situation arising in the view of cyclonic storm. The committee will work under the chairmanship of the Minister for Climate Change, Sherry Rahman, and it will include Power Minister Khurram Dastagir, Food Minister Tariq Bashir Cheema, Chairman NDMA Lieutenant General Inam Haider Malik, representatives of Sindh and Balochistan governments, Meteorological Department and NIH. And it's really glad, I'm really glad to see that how people are actually gathered under the top leadership in order to make sure that people are protected from that storm. And because I was watching that there was a lot of evacuation going on from
Yes.
that coastal areas of the Sindh, in the Karachi and Thatta and Badin, because storm is about to hit there. And yesterday we also talked about Shah Abdullah Ghazi's Mazar, and there's a lot of myths surrounding it that till the time that the Mazar or Mausoleum is there, no one can touch the cyclonic storm, but we need to make sure that we are well protected and do not, it's always good to be more well protected.
Exactly,
right?
and Hajar, you know, I certainly, you know, like the leadership style of our Premier Mia Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif Saab as well, because I think it is very rare to see that, you know, this is for the very first time that I've seen that, you know, there's this proactive approach, you know, rather than if we are to kind of compare with the previous government. Unfortunately, you know, when the floods came in and, you know, there was a lot of destruction or maybe earthquake, you know, so it wasn't really a proactive approach. It's like, okay, God forbid if these areas were where the problem was or if there's destruction over there, you know, so then later on, you know, there will be help reaching out to people.
Yes.
So this proactive approach, ladies and gentlemen, inshallah will help the government save a lot of lives and, you know, make sure that they are food secure as well.
Inshallah.
But moving on, how the weather is, ladies and gentlemen, as of now. Dust, thunderstorm, rain with isolated hailstorm is likely in Kashmir, Upper Punjab, Islamabad, Gilgit-Baltistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, East, South Balochistan and Central Lower Sindh during next 24 hours. Whereas dust storm, dust-raising winds are likely in central districts of the country. Heavy falls are also likely at few places in Lower Sindh. However, mainly hot and humid weather is expected in most parts of the country. Met Office said a westerly wave is affecting parts of the country. Extremely severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy over northeast Arabian Sea now lies near latitude 21.2 degrees nautical and north and longitude 66.6 degrees east. And I think that the good part, Hajar, over here is that, you know, just yesterday the speed was somewhat up around to 140 and 160 kilometers, but it has dropped. And I think that's something that, God forbid, you know, if we are to kind of face it, first of all, obviously, I need to pray to Allah Almighty that something of this sort never happens. It has never happened over here in Pakistan every time there's a news. But for all of those people who are out there, it's just a humble, simple request. Please make sure, number one, that you do not go to the coastal line or the coastal areas, because the government keeps on warning you. And what you really need to do is that you really need to spread the word so that all of the lives can be saved. Inshallah, God forbid, if Biparjoy is said to be over here at the coastal areas of Pakistan.
And the government is very proactively dealing it, because NDMA, I think I got the message of the NDMA where they're making sure to get the precaution out there among the people. But I think it is also the responsibility of the citizens to listen to what the government is saying and make sure that you are protected, because obviously it is for your own benefit out there. And this brings me to another conversation, Shehzad. So this name Biparjoy, it's a very interesting sort of a name, and there's, I mean, entire logic behind it. So some cyclones are based after the names of women, some are based after the names of the men, and how do you name them, and who gets to decide what name do you want to give it to it? So there's entire science, and I think we will discuss it sometime. But today is Wednesday, it is 14th of June, and it is also happens to be World Blood Donor Day. And the theme of this year is Give Blood, Give Plasma, Share Life, Share Often. And we have heard this term plasma a lot in the COVID, and I think you're well aware of this diction. But we want to, listen to further, and we have a package made out there by our team. So let's watch it. Right. Right. So Shehzad, so we've certainly heard this term called plasma, and I remember when we were in the university, especially there was this course called community service course, and there was and it was 3 credit hour course, and there was this thing that if you donate a blood to any of these blood donation services or any people out there, so you can have that 3 credit hours to your credit in the first place.
Exactly, and Hajra, I still remember.
Samosa was an additional delight.
Yes, samosa, and then there was this juice that, okay, you know, later rahiye, uthna nahi, aapko chakkar aayenge. But I think what we really need to do is that, you know, we need to give more awareness. That's why we are over here observing this World Blood Donor Day. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a package made by our team. Go ahead, take a look, and we have a very wonderful guest over here to speak about it, whether how healthy it is for any human to give blood to share life.
Countries around the world celebrate World Blood Donors Day. Event serves to raise awareness of the need for safe blood and blood products, and to thank voluntary unpaid blood donors for their life-saving gifts of blood. A blood service that gives patients access to safe blood and blood products in sufficient quantity is a key component of an effective health system. The global theme of World Blood Donor Day changes each year in recognition of the selfless individuals who donate their blood for people unknown to them. The slogan for 2023 World Blood Donor Day campaign, celebrated on 14th June 2023, is Give Blood, Give Plasma, Share Life, Share Often. It focuses on patients requiring lifelong transfusion support and underlines the role every single person can play by giving the valuable gift of blood or plasma. It also highlights the importance of giving blood or plasma regularly to create a safe and sustainable supply of blood and blood products that can be available always all over the world, so that all patients in need can receive timely treatment. And the objectives are very simple: to celebrate and thank the individuals who donate blood and encourage more people to become new donors. Raza Khan, PTV World.
Thank you so much, Raza, for this wonderful package. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, there's so many illnesses and diseases out there which need a lot of blood transfusion. I mean, for example, imagine women who are pregnant, you know, unfortunately, if their hemoglobin is low, you know, they would certainly will have to go for blood transfusion. Let's talk about kids who are actually fighting with thalassemia. There's so many different illnesses where, you know, for example, speak of people, you know, whose kidneys are really not doing well, you know, so, you know, every now and then when they have to go for dialysis, there are situations when they have to go undergo blood transfusion. People who have been in accidents. And imagine that, you know, why is there this concept of sharing life is that giving blood, you know, after every 4 months or 5 months, ladies and gentlemen, is even healthier for you. So to kind of talk about this, we're very lucky that we've been joined by
Professor Dr. Hassan Zahir Abbas, and he happens to be WHO advisor on blood regulation, availability and safety. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
And it's a pleasure. Likewise.
So, Professor Saab, since we are observing this day, and Shehzad also talked about that the safety is so much important, so is the quality of the blood, right? And we have seen that how many people, they get all of these diseases because the blood transfusion method or sterilization was not perfect, was not right. as a representative of the WHO, why do you think it's important to observe such kind of day?
Blood safety is extremely important, as you said. You know, blood transfusion is the single most important life-saving intervention that is carried out all over the world every day in all the hospitals. So, if you are giving something to the patient to save their lives, you need to make sure that you know, instead of saving life, you are not endangering their lives in the short term or in the long term by giving them any infections.
Exactly, and you know, where Professor Saab has actually mentioned about blood safety, ladies and gentlemen, I think for people who are actually undergoing blood transfusion, it's their responsibility to kind of ask the people who kind of are the ones who will be taking you or who will be doing that treatment onto you, that whether the blood is tested or not, you know, and be safe. But sir, when we talk about the significance of this day, how do you think, how many lives are being saved over the year by blood transfusions, by people who have been donating blood, because we do have this culture of donation, and how healthy it is for anybody to donate blood and in what intervals?
I mean, first of all, it's an undisputed fact that every day, every minute, lives are being saved all over the world through blood transfusion.
True.
And we are also reducing morbidity. But I'll come back to your earlier statement of putting the responsibility on the patients to ensure that the blood that they are receiving is safe.
At least they should ask.
Yes, it's their right to ask, but not their responsibility.
Obviously.
It is the responsibility of the state and the system to make sure that the blood transfusion and the blood banking system is safe. And
but Dr. Saab, as a layperson, how can we ensure that, I mean, as a representative of the WHO, what are the parameters that you recommend we should go for when we are checking after the safety and the quality of the blood in the first place?
Yes, WHO recommends that a number of things. You should have a centrally coordinated national system for blood banking and blood transfusion, which means that you should not have a fragmented system, public sector, private sector, small, large, medium-sized blood banks which are unregulated. That is not.
Do we have a centralized system?
We are in the process of having it. Since 2010, we have started working on it. So, we are now complying with the first recommendation of WHO. The second recommendation is that…
Isn't it a little late? You know, it's 2023.
It's very late,
but
but…
speaking of a regulated blood bank over here.
I agree with you. It's late, but better late than never.
Yeah, obviously.
So, the second part of their basic recommendation is that the all blood that is collected must be properly screened, tested, and quality assurance at all steps.
Wonderful.
Right? And the third thing is that all the donated blood must be or should be donated voluntarily.
Exactly.
So, we are working on all these.
Now that's where it's going to get interesting, because I still remember, you know, so every now and then, you know, this organization, you know, it's one of the biggest blood bank organization over here in Pakistan. They would have their camps in universities, and you know, students were willing to do it, and the teachers would promote it.
Yes.
You know, even though that we were doing it for the sawab of it and the juice and the samosa attached with it. But there was this one thing which I still remember, that you know, every time that we would donate blood, you know, after every semester, probably I think it was a 4-month cycle or a 5-month cycle that they would be in our university. And one day I asked them that, okay, God forbid, if there's a day that we need blood, what do you think we need to do? So he gave me a card and he was like, okay, you just come to a blood bank and then we'll give you the blood, you know, so whatever, you know, blood type it is, and, you know, we're going to give it to you for free. And unfortunately, there was this one occasion where we certainly needed blood. We went to that certain blood bank, and imagine that they were asking money for it. And I was like, yeah, there were so many students who used to donate blood for free voluntarily. And I have come down to this day where, you know, you're telling the same person we're donating blood to your blood bank, and you have started to ask money for it. So how do you think that we kill these dirty practices within the blood donation system?
First of all, when you're donating blood voluntarily, then you should not be having any thought of getting anything in return, apart from the fact of getting satisfaction from saving 3 lives.
But what if they tell you that, you know, you're going to get it for free, God forbid, if you need it too?
They should not be making this claim, because, you know, you may be traveling all over the world and they can't keep following you to make sure that if you need blood, they'll be there for you.
Exactly.
So that is not a good approach. My second point is that, you know, these organizations who come to collect blood in mobile camps in the campuses, not a very good idea.
Okay.
They do it with noble intentions, all right, that's fine. But the idea is that when you donate blood for the first time, you recruit yourself as a regular blood donor. But if you are donating in a mobile blood camp, and that comes after every 5-6 months, the target population is a mobile population. Students keep on coming and going.
Yeah.
So how do you become a regular donor? You become a regular donor maybe first time you donate blood at the mobile setting, but during that time when you are donating blood and interacting with the mobile blood team, they should convince you and counsel you to come to their center next time and donate blood regularly every 2 or 3 months.
Exactly.
Right.
So what is
Yes.
the recommended cycle? So imagine, back in those days, they used to tell us that, okay, after every 4 months, you can give away a liter of blood or something of that sort,
Yes.
number one. Number two, because the sole purpose is to spread awareness,
Yes.
how important it is for the donor to know that whether, I'm fit enough to give blood, whether, there's some illnesses which can, God forbid, if the blood is going to go to somebody else, that they can get ill or something of that sort. So what sort of awareness is required and what is the cycle? So how often?
So the new recommendations are that you can donate blood every 2 months.
Okay.
For ladies every 3 months.
Okay.
So if you are doing it 3 or 4 times a year and 2 or 3% of the national population is doing it, that's enough to cover the blood needs of the entire country.
Wonderful.
Right.
Only the 2 or 3% of the population, if they are
Yeah,
donating.
this small pool of
do it.
regular voluntary donors, you can put reliance completely on the voluntary system.
Wonderful.
And that's how it's happening in the Western countries.
All right.
But in our society, we are relying on the friends and family members of the patients, and we have outsourced our
Yes.
responsibility to the families,
Yes. True.
which is not a very good thing to do because they are already worried and concerned
Yes.
and running around
Exactly.
Certainly
for
the
the
blood
sick
type
patients.
And what is the
matches and
what is the fitness criteria? So, for example, if I am to think, by myself that, okay, whether if I am fit enough to donate blood or not, what is that criteria? Does it have to do with weight and hemoglobin? And,
Yes.
so
And
do you have to
that's
get
a
yourself
very,
tested first?
That's
Yes.
a very important point, Dr. Saab, because I remember when I was about to donate my blood. So I think 1 or 2 years ago, I had the jaundice, hepatitis A, and someone told me that you're not eligible for donating the blood because of the quality and safety and stuff like that. So who is eligible to donate
Right.
blood in the first place?
So, when you go to a good blood center, you are supposed to go through 3 steps before your blood is transfused
Taken,
to someone else. The first step is we have a set of questions, 20-25 questions, and the reason for asking these questions in privacy is to identify any risk factors that you may have,
True.
or any factor that may endanger
And what
your
are the
health
risk factors?
by
For
donating
example, if
blood.
somebody has hypertension, heart issues.
Some medication or unhealthy
Diabetes
lifestyle.
probably.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
So if you clear this first step, then the second step is that a brief physical examination, which is height, no, not height, weight,
Squeeze the hand
temperature,
or
blood
something like that.
pressure,
Yeah.
hemoglobin.
Yes.
And if you clear this second step also, then your blood is collected, and the collected blood is then screened for at least 5 diseases, which are hepatitis B, C, HIV, syphilis and malaria. And when this screening is also completed and your blood is clear, then your blood or the blood components can be transfused to the patients.
Wow. And thank you so much, sir, for sharing this, because I believe that it's going to be very useful for the audiences out there.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to come back to where I'm going to take you to 2019 till 2021. Okay, let's talk about that. That was the time when a lot of people needed plasma. And we have seen that there were so many ill practices which emerged that, people have started to sell their plasma, even if it was for a blood bank. Everybody thought of it as a business model with which they can make a lot of money. How do you think World Health Organization intervenes and says that, hey, you know what, these are not the practices which you can undergo. In fact, rather, this is the standard operating procedure for any blood bank out there. And what is that SOP for any blood bank to operate?
Yes, you are talking about the COVID era,
Yes.
Yes.
in which early 2020 there was a strong school of thought that the
Injecting plasma, yeah.
the plasma
Of the recovered.
From the recovered patients
Yes.
of COVID would be helpful in the treatment of the next patients. But many studies were done in different countries, including in Pakistan, clinical trials also. But there was no, it was not proven conclusively that the convalescent plasma is really useful in treatment of the COVID patients.
All right.
So that option is not recommended anymore.
No more valid
But
now.
the process of collection of plasma from the recovered patients, that was not really properly regulated in the country, and that was a shame. And many people made
Huge profits out of it.
Yes,
That-
misuse
खून
of
बेच के
this
पैसे
effect.
कमाए लोगों ने भाई
Yes,
शर्म
that
आनी
was
चाहिए वैसे उन
unfortunate.
लोगों को अगर वो देख रहे हैं तो किसी ने भी अगर
I
ऐसी
think it
हरकत
was
की है
such
तो
a health emergency, and the government was so, and the states were so invested in making sure that we invaded that invisible enemy called COVID. But obviously, these malpractices flourish all around the world. It was not just in Pakistan; it was everywhere around the world. But Dr. Saab, one last question before we wrap up this segment is that there's this lack of access towards the safe blood, and people who need these transfusion services in their lifetime. So how can we make sure, especially in the middle income countries or the low income countries, that we popularize the access towards the safe blood? And that is why we observe this day in the
Yes,
first place.
Pakistan has done a remarkable job in addressing the blood safety system and blood banking system, and we have actually introduced a new blood banking system in the country in 2010. And I was fortunate to be given the responsibility of introducing this system. And what we did was that we developed a new infrastructure of a network of regional blood centers all over the country, which were linked to hospital-based blood banks. But in these new regional blood centers, we did the bulk of the work, which was blood production, which included mobilization of blood donors, blood collection, screening, testing, processing, component preparation, and storage,
Yes.
and giving the prepared blood components to the hospitals according to their needs. And all the hospital blood banks had to do was to store it and then cross match it and issue it to the patient for transfusion.
Wow,
So
that's
this is the system that we have introduced in the country. It is ongoing. We need to expand this coverage and strengthen it, and eventually replace it with the pre-existing fragmented unsafe system.
Exactly, and thank you so much for sharing
Thank
it
you
with
so
our
much.
audiences that the system finally exists. The standard operating procedures are in place, which is why, ladies and gentlemen, today on World Blood Donor Day, we are saying give blood, give plasma, share life, share often. And with that, we're actually going to head out towards a short break. Thank you very much, Professor Saab, for being
Thank
with
you
us.
so much.
Lovely to be in conversation with you.
It's a
And
pleasure.
thank you very much once again. Yeah, because this is the kind of awareness which certainly needs to go out to the audiences.
Yes.
So that God forbid, if ever in life that's something that you have to go through, you would know and you should know. We're
Right.
going to a short break. Don't go anywhere because when you come back, it's all about parenting and it's summer vacations.
Welcome back, and we have a very interesting conversation lined up today because it is a topic which is very deeply resonating with a lot of parents out there, especially the parents or the couples who are working out there. And nowadays, I think as the millennial, this is the trend going on because both of the parents, they are working, they are making to make their ends meet in the first place. And when they have kids, so what sort of impact does that have on the kids? And generally, I believe, and because I have that lived experiences, that working mothers, their kids are very mature because obviously their mother is not present for them all the time. So they had this opportunity to grow up really faster, and they're very responsible in the first place. So I have seen that.
And only a
I'm maybe
mother
not-
can answer whether what she's saying is right or wrong, because a lot of mothers might not feel that that this statement might resonate with their mindset. So without
Right.
any further ado, to have this conversation, and then at times I would like to add over here. A father would say something, then the mother, which the mother wouldn't agree to,
Okay.
as a parent, and then a mother would say something to the kids where the father does not agree, and it's a continuous argument in between the
Right.
parents, not with the babies
And-
though,
and-
but
and-
in
and-
between them.
whose opinion standard out? I mean, that was
And
the
obviously,
ultimate opinion. The
wives are
father's.
always right.
No,
So, ladies
the
and
father's
gentlemen,
opinion stands out.
It's a very difficult conversation to go
Okay.
through. So we're very lucky that we've been joined by some very well-educated,
Yes.
well-traveled people over here inside the studios. Both of them happen to have their own professions as doctors. And how do they look after, their kids, make sure that they're going to progress in their profession, then at the same time look after their kids just like any other parent
Yes.
who's at home 24/7. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, we're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody who happens to be a family physician, medical and dermatology specialist. She happens to be Dr. Rubina Osman. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much for joining us, and alongside her, we're very lucky that we've been joined by her husband, who happens to be a gastroenterologist and a liver specialist. He is Dr. Usman Aftab Ahmed. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. Thank you for having
All right,
us.
so first things first. Is your wife always right?
Definitely.
Definitely.
I'll put in Urdu statement here. Taqat ko salam.
ताकत को सलाम.
वजूदे जन से है कायनात में रंग पैदा.
Yeah,
Right? This
and
is
I have
the
another
appropriate
statement to make away,
yes.
and that is that so but that one person whom you cannot criticize,
Okay.
have authority over you. All right, so just keep it that way.
Right.
So let's get started with the conversation. Obviously, parenting.
Okay, first of all, that's not true. So
Okay.
that's just a
Okay,
party
okay.
line. I'm telling you that now.
Okay.
No, but that was really well put. Actually, to be honest, I was just thinking that it's really tough nowadays because we both have to. It's the same story in every household, isn't it? You have to have both people working to meet the ends meet.
That's true.
It's simple as that.
That's
if you have one person who's the bread earner and the other one sat at home, sadly, it's no longer working anymore for
That's
us.
Exactly.
So more people are going out to look for jobs, and the common theme always is childcare.
Right.
They'll always be like reluctant. Yeah, I want to work, but what do I do about my kids? Where do my children
Right.
go?
Yeah.
But we're really lucky and blessed in Pakistan because you have a lot of free childcare here in the form of grandparents.
Nani, dadi.
And a great family support system here
Absolutely,
who always look
absolutely.
after, especially your nani and dadi. And I think in generally Pakistan, you can also get a good sort of helpers in Pakistan, and that too in a very
I mean, I don't know whether
amazing
they're
way.
reliable or not. That's what with Nani and Dadi, you have that trust.
Yes,
But
yes.
with other people, you can never trust. But let's come back to the topic over here. So, Dr. Saab, I'll move on to you too as well.
Yes.
Now, what happens is most of the time, obviously, with people who are professional, I think what they've done is that they've created more jobs like this. So imagine that if they're not around their kids, they put installed cameras. There's this one IT guy who's a very regular, sir, camera to sahi chal rahe, with audio in it as well and whatnot. Then there are people, nannies and whatnot. So a lot of people are getting a lot of jobs. But do you think that, as a parent, at times it does get difficult for a working parent to kind of, do all the chores which the kids do require?
I think there's a famous saying, it takes a village.
Yeah.
It takes a village to raise a
Raise a
family.
child.
So that's, I think whether you're living in Pakistan or whether you're living abroad, this is exactly the same over there. I've got friends over there who have the similar problems, who have moved or asked their parents or grandparents or even in-laws to move very close by to take care of them.
True.
Yes, it becomes sometimes very difficult, and I'm one of those parents. How I've got cameras installed everywhere, and probably 2 or 3 times a day I keep on looking, and I've got those cameras that you can talk into. So I keep telling them, "You're not watching TV. Why are you watching TV?"
Oh my
Lately,
God,
we are doing the exercise. We hide the remotes from them.
Well, that's a good thing that your kids are watching TV, because nowadays kids are on the mobile phone. I don't know which one is dangerous, a TV or a mobile.
I think it's the same.
Yeah, but
yeah,
Dr.
it is pretty
Rubia,
bad.
yeah.
So the sad part is he hides the remotes, but then we can't find them. So I watch TV for like 5 minutes of the day after my day is over, and I'm exhausted, and it's like literally 5 minutes before I'll crash, and I can never find the remote now.
But Dr. Rubia, come back to this conversation, because Shahzad alluded to the fact that there is always a diversity of opinion going on between a mother and father on the role of parenting, and and moving on to another important topic, which is how to create an emotional safe space for your children where they can express themselves to parents. And I think the environment is getting very different, because we were raised in a different environment and there was a lot of formality involved.
हमारी बारी में तो छत्तर भी पड़ते थे.
Yes, we were not very expressive about our states, and we used
I
to
was so
respect
expressive that I used to get beaten every day by my mother. Even
that was
I
the
still
spirit,
remember
like-
that I was at the last time I got beaten by my mother was when I was in the 8th semester of the final semester of my bachelor's. That's how That's how I've progressed in my life.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, and stayed on the track.
Yes, yes. And the other
Very
day,
sorry, yeah.
I was having this conversation with my father on a lighter note, and he says that, your mom always talks about कि मैं हड्डियाँ तोड़ूंगी. That doesn't mean that mom will break your bones. So I was like, how do you know that she might attempt that, when she is angry? Because obviously, raising kids is a very tough job, and don't know how much emotional
I think
toll
they
it
should
takes.
always
Yeah.
feel this. They should always feel this threat कि हड्डियाँ वाकई तोड़ देंगे. Whether you do it or not, that's a different story. But they should always feel this threat.
Is that the reason for you to move from UK to Pakistan?
Oh yes,
God
definitely. The moment we landed here, we told our son, look, we are here now. There's no number to call,
Yeah.
so don't worry.
So
Yeah, please.
emotional safe
No,
spaces.
so
Dr. Rubia.
first of all, there's no like right or wrong answer here, because
Right.
it's sadly it's not a formula, it's not a generic formula that I can give out today and everybody will follow it and that'll be the perfect parenting formula. There's no such thing. So every child is different, every parent is different, every household is different. The best thing that I found that worked for us was because we had such action-packed schedules which were really busy, let's just put it that way, especially when we were training, was that I always made sure that there was at least some time of the day that they knew they had alone with us. So there was one-on-one.
Okay.
So whether it was I was doing the school run, I spent time with them. There were times that Usman always even now says that why do you always, because sometimes you're really bending yourself backwards to do these things. But I feel that's one time that, and a lot of moms will say this, that's the time when my kids can tell me everything. So it's just them and me in the car.
Okay.
So we'll talk and all kinds of things come out.
So-
Some scary ones.
so and that's exactly what we would want to pick up on, and that is that obviously, because when I get to see parents who both of them work, they're in the environment out there which is 100% professional.
Yes.
I think they one way or the other get like-minded, so they kind of eventually
Yes.
support each other. But imagine that if only one of the parent is working, it come back home, maybe a he or a she. The problem over here is that a father would disagree with the mother's decision, whatever she's taken for the kids. And obviously a mother would always think better about kids. And this disagreement, I think, is something which I would want to touch upon as well. Do you guys ever come across these
Of course,
disagreements?
of course we do. I think it's human for us to do, because no humans
Yes.
are alike. I think one important thing that I would like to accept in my life as well, which I'll preach. but if you've got a disagreement, I think that should not come across in front of the children.
True.
Because what
Yes.
children start doing then is they start playing
Exploiting.
against each other.
Yes.
So
Yes.
in the beginning, this is cute.
Yes.
That they are telling people, both parents, different things, but this can become
problem.
very dangerous and problematic at the later stage.
Exactly.
But I think disagreement is, yes, if it's healthy, that's brilliant. But it should not come across, and the idea should not come across in so clear words in front of the children.
And
So
how do
I'm
you
going to share
resolve
this
that
incident.
agreement? Okay.
And I would love to share this incident. So imagine that, every time we would go back home, I have three, alhamdulillah, beautiful daughters.
Mashallah.
One of them is 10, one of them is 4.5, and one of them is 3 and 3.5, somewhere in between. I mean, my wife can actually fight on me not remembering their ages and birthdays as well. But so what used to happen was that, whenever I used to go back home, all of a sudden there was this sudden shouting, and I was like, yeah, in the other room, I was like, how can she shout on my children? This is not right. And, she's yelling, and, I do not like this concept. And, I would disagree with her. I would tell her that, hey, you know what, this is not the nicest thing to do. You can tell them calmly and nicely as well. So what she did one day, that she went to her mother's house and left all three of them with me. And eventually I had to shout too, unfortunately. And I was like, yeah, what happened all of a sudden? There was this chaos which was unleashed on me, and, everybody was jumping, and, they took privilege that mother's not around. And I'm like, okay, I've never, was never that father who's going to shout, but that one day I had to. I was like, yeah, please come on, settle down.
And
So
did
young
you use the line, don't tell me how to raise my children?
All couples always say this. I will never shout at my kids. I'll be the good parent. I will talk to them. Give it a year. Give it a year.
And do you think that, that bad cop and good cop policy always work?
Well, we are just bad cop, I think, most of the time. One says no, then the other says no as well. So for mobile phones.
Yeah.
So in our house, with iPads, electronics, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it took us a while to get there. Don't get us wrong. We were the same. Our kids also had them, but then we realized that it was affecting their physical and emotional health.
Right.
They were always like on edge. They were always crying at the tiniest thing. And then Usman just suddenly one day said, you know what, this is because of the electronics, and they're all going. And that was it. It was a
Right.
tough
And did it
2
work?
weeks.
Oh,
It was a tough
definitely.
2 weeks, but it worked.
They
Yeah.
have started acting out.
Yeah.
Because, kids are very smart.
Right.
We don't give them credit. They're resilient, they are smart. They will pick up on things. They knew if they create a problem in the house, the first thing that working parents would do
Take
is
the
give
phone.
them something.
Yeah. Just
Take the
phone.
remote,
Yeah.
go watch TV,
Yeah.
take this mobile, take the laptop or iPads or somewhat. and they pick on it.
And they would do it on purpose.
They do it on purpose, yes. And I tell you, because nowadays, every day, I'm sure everybody is getting a WhatsApp message from a friend, yeah, don't let your children watch this. This is different. Because the content is not monitored.
Exactly.
So,
that's true.
and I have felt it personally, the kids, the day they don't watch, the screen time is low, they are more friendlier, they are engaging with their grandparents, they are engaging with us.
Yes.
And probably having a healthy discussion among themselves.
Yes. So Dr. Rupia, coming back to you, since you guys have been living in the UK for quite some time and now you moved to Pakistan, and obviously raising your child in a country which is not your own country like Pakistan. So they were exposed to different cultures, different sets of values, and when both of you were had a very busy and back-to-back schedule. So how is it raising the kids? They're making sure that you are instilling the values which you hold dear to your heart, and be more vigilant about them, because it's a very tough job and juggling between being a parent and also being a doctor at the same time.
So two things. I just want to mention firstly was the monetary side of things. So what we never budgeted was childcare budget.
Okay.
So I think if I told anybody how much we spend over the last 15 years in childcare, I can't. I can't. I
That's
can't
why
tell
we don't have a house.
No, we don't even. We don't even tell ourselves. You know, like raat ke andhere mein, you might just suddenly realize, you're like, no.
Yaar, ye kya ho raha?
Block it out. So that is something you don't budget. So for a young couple who's just starting out, just don't be stressed out. We've all been through this. This will be bad. You will have bad few years possibly, even if it's this kind of profession that you have. Lekin there's always light at the end of the tunnel. It gets better, I promise you. So we had good nannies. We were really lucky. We were blessed like that. And we had stressful times. I mean, there's a time when I remember my mom was ill and I had to fly back to Pakistan and I had to stay here. I had to leave 2 young ones there with a brand new nanny who had started a month ago.
Okay.
And father as well.
That's the important thing I was about to ask.
I think it gets difficult for wives to leave their husband with nanny.
No, it's so
Especially in
stressful.
England. I think
Because we get to hear a lot of stories about it, right?
Caring father, they'd use the term, I'm looking after the kids, or I'm having a child care today.
Yeah.
And I remember a lot of my, even the Gora friends and colleagues used to say, no, it's not looking after the kids. They're your children.
Well, it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be in conversation to talk about this. But eventually, there might be this one formula which both of you came up with, together. What is that one formula which you would want to share with people and audiences out there who are new at it, who certainly do not know that, we're working parents and what needs to be done. And right on this occasion, I would want to kind of mention that people who progressed have made sure that they're going to make some smart investments. For example, still remember when I got married, so my mother, I had this habit of whatever clothes I'm going to change, I'm going to throw them downstairs and then my mother's going to wash them for me. So now I'm married, so after a week's time, there was this inside house conference where my mother called me and my wife and was like, hey, you know what? So now you're the wife and you really need to look after the laundry and everything and whatnot.
Yes.
And I didn't have a washing machine back then, So imagine, I still remember that one day my father came up and he brought a new washing machine, and there was this guy who was supposed to, or a woman, fortunately, who was supposed to wash the clothes, and the entire fight was gone. And it was a very sensible decision. The same happened. So my father got retired, and my mother was habitual of whenever he was supposed to leave the house with the driver, my mother would take the driver. So I had to hire another driver to make sure that there's no more argument.
Right.
These are those smart solutions which you put in place to make sure that everything runs smoothly. What is that smart solution you would share?
I think from my experience, and now because I'm slightly older and I would like to say I'm slightly wiser as well and gone through the mill, I think have a plan. Because what you don't want is that this is affecting your work life as well, because that's important. That's where you get your money from. So it's very early on that me and Rubia, we decided, yes, what we want is peace of mind. So if you can invest into it, then yes, if money can solve your problem, then try to solve it, but have a plan for it.
Exactly.
Because yes, the children will get older. The amount of their requirement of childcare and this will come down, and you will have time. Right. But if you are constantly worried about what is happening to them when you are away at work, you're not going to be at work wholeheartedly. You are having a lousy time there, and when you come home, you are fighting because both are tired. So in Pakistan, we are blessed with this joint family structure. I think utilize your parents, your grandparents. One, they get
even
involved.
they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
They enjoyed it. They feel younger.
They stay young.
It's important for them as well, because this gives them something busier to do.
live for, yeah.
Exactly, and we all know. Look, being parents, you have to have an iron fist. Unfortunately, grandparents have this benefit of not having that.
Yeah.
So they are just love.
Yeah.
So they can give all the love, utilize them, and just have a plan that over the years this will improve, and it will. It
Things
will.
get easier. They
And
always
that's
do.
exactly the reason why I'm going to move on to Dr. Rubio over here, because do you agree to his plan?
Yes, absolutely. No, absolutely.
That's the
There were
question.
times we had to pick between like getting a nanny who would come at our house, or
Yeah.
we could send kids somewhere.
Okay.
But with the kind of schedule that we had, like for instance, if a patient fell ill,
Right.
you can't say, oh, by the way, I'm going to go pick my kids now. You just stay here and just
Yes,
save yourself.
yes,
You
yes.
can't do that.
Yes.
So the best part about having a home nanny was that the children were safe. They were in a safe environment,
Yep.
and she understood how we worked. So we could just sometimes we didn't even have time to text, because we would be literally in throes. So we couldn't have time to text. Look, I'm sorry, there's a patient who's dying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She just understood.
And
She
obviously,
just knew
once
it.
the eldest kid actually kind
Grows
of
up,
converges
yes.
into an adult,
Yes.
that's the time when you can certainly rely. Acha putter ab ya.
Always.
You get your
Always.
money back.
Always.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
But thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
being with
much.
us.
Thank
Lovely
you
to
so
be in
much.
conversation with such amazing doctors who are amazing parents as well. And thank you so much for
Alhamdulillah.
sharing your
About
piece
that.
of advice with our audiences out there in 46 different countries. So wherever you may probably be, ladies and gentlemen, our sole purpose was to get you the advice which has actually worked for them. And it's likewise, so this investment will certainly come back in your kids growing up, and being that reasonable human being which everybody is going to respect is something which everybody wants for their kids.
So until next time, it's a goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and good
Good morning. Have a great day.